This is an overview video of the lesson plan implementation rubric for methods courses. We're going to review the individual expectations and the satisfactory 3 scoring level. This is the highest grade that you can earn for each of these expectations. So the first expectation is that students will come prepared and improvise when needed. So, looking at satisfactory 3. Students have enough materials and materials are age and activity appropriate. So, if you're using pieces of paper for children and maybe they rip it or maybe they want another piece of paper, do you have extras? The typical material rule of thumb is for every child, you have 1.5 times the materials. So for example, if you had 4 infants, you would have 6 materials. So extra. If you as a teacher implementing are going to need that material as well for modeling, then you want to add yourself in that count. Also, when you're implementing your lesson plan, do you have the ability to anticipate the unforeseen and/or can you improvise if necessary? So again, if that child rips that paper, are you going to allow them to continue to create on now their 2 pieces of paper? Or how are you going to go about that? Improvising throughout your lesson plans is an important skill for teachers and really in every part of teaching. The second expectation is that you, the student, will transition the children and include an introduction of yourself. Your transition is effective and it's creative. Remember, eyes on, ears on, hands on. Student will explain expectations for the activity to the children. Your explanation needs to be clear and the children understand all expectations. Remember, when you're explaining clear explanations for infants and toddlers, again, do you have a visual? Are you showing them? Are you including your modeling of something? That's that hands-on component. So look, listen, hands-on again to reinforce your explanation of the lesson. The activity allows the children to create their own knowledge. So the lesson has all of the previous criterion and allows the children to take the activity in their own direction. Again, you don't want a Q&A session. How are those divergent questions encouraging the children to use their critical thinking? What component of your lesson is open-ended, allowing the children to take command of the lesson plan, right? It also allows you as the teacher to sit back and observe, making sure that your objectives are being met. So, lesson objectives will be clear, measurable, and met. The objectives meet all of the 3 criterion completely, meaning that your objectives support your standards. Your objectives are clearly identified. Remember, you're bolding them in your written lesson plan, and those objectives are implemented regardless of whether they're met by the children or not. Is it clearly implemented when you're doing the activity with the children? Students will utilize a variety of teaching strategies to keep the group of children engaged. The student, you, in this role, the teacher, sets limits, utilizes critical thinking questions, and manages time and redirects behaviors at all time. So again, this is your classroom management component. How are you going to refocus the children? How are you addressing and including those divergent questions or modeling to support the critical thinking of the young children? How are you managing time? Time and attention span are vital when you're working with infants and toddlers. And you'll be surprised. The attention span a short attention span is often what people think of infants and toddlers. But if you have a dynamic lesson, they're going to stay engaged and focused with you. The student will demonstrate creativity in the lesson plan implementation with imagination and professional materials. So again, student uses or creates materials that are attractive, well constructed, and relate to the learning objectives, ideas, being taught in the lesson plan, right? Make sure that your materials are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. Are they going to stand up to an infant that's going to explore with their hands or even their mouths? Finally, student shows enthusiasm and makes the lesson interesting for the children. So you're making the lesson engaging, inspiring, and interesting for the children. Sometimes this comes down to you being animated. We often talk about how teachers are really good actors. So think about your enthusiasm level. What's your tone? What's your body language saying? What's your actual language saying with its tone, and make it dynamic for the children. Students have the opportunity to earn 24 points maximum for their implementation of the lesson plans. We hope that this was a helpful overview, but if you have any specific questions, you're encouraged to talk with your course instructor.